Hallo, zukünftige Deutsche und Deutscherinnen. Ich spreche auf Englisch. Last time, we covered basic questions, and the time before that we did Hi, wie geht's? So today, we're going to be learning about places and the question, where do you live? Which is on the screen in English. Here are some places. We've got Paris, Berlin, Madrid, London, and Brussels. The capitals of France, Germany, Spain, England, and Belgium, respectively. Doch zuerst eine kurze Zusammenfassung. But first, a quick recap. Please read out this conversation between our friends Heidi and Hans, filling in the gaps appropriately where necessary. This time, you don't get to choose the responses. There is a set answer. I'll give you some time to figure that out. Okay. Okay, so you should have Heise in the first box. Don't worry about spelling as this is a speaking activity. And in the second box, you should have Lieblingsfarbe. Lieblingsfarbe, also Heidi. Hallo, ich habe deinen Namen vergessen. Wie heißt du? Hans, ich heiße Hans. Heidi, ja, das ist richtig. Und was ist deine Lieblingsfarbe? Hans, meine Lieblingsfarbe ist blau. Heidi, ich mag blau auch. Hans, ich muss jetzt gehen. Und they probably say auf Wiedersehen. Okay. Oh dear, I have lost the endings for each of the persons in this verb. What to do? I know, why don't you fill it in? Pause the video and on a piece of paper or a book or whatever, fill out the verb including the missing endings. I'll give you some time to pause the video and do that. Okay, here's what you should have. The infinitive was already there, but we'll just go over that. Heißen, to be called. The first person singular is ich heiße. The second person singular is du heißt, with a T on the end. And the third person singular is sie, es heißt, with a T on the end again. The first person plural is wir heißen, with an en on the end. Second person plural is ihr heißt, with a T on the end, like the second and third person. And the third person plural is sie heißen, with an en on the end, just like the first person plural. Dankeschön. Thank you for the help. Okay, also, was würden diese Leute sagen? What would these people say? Assuming ich bin means I am, write the numbers 1 to 4 on some paper, and for each one, choose either A, blau, B, rot, C, schwarz, oder D, braun. So, choose either A, blue, blau, whoops, B, rot, C, schwarz, or D, braun. So I've given you the first one, freebie. Pause the video and have a go at that activity. Okay, the first one is B, rot. He is in a red suit, so rot works here. The second one is D, braun. The third is E, blau. The fourth is C, schwarz. Note that I am using the German letters A, B, C, D. We will go over the alphabet probably in the next lesson or the one afterwards. Also, wo wohnst du? Where do you live? That's the topic of today's lesson. Wo wohnst du? Try saying that to yourself. To respond, ich wohne in Paris, Brüssel, Berlin, London, Manchester, Edinburgh, Washington DC, München, etc. Ich spreche auf Englisch. Please fill in the gaps with an appropriate response. This time you can choose one of them as long as it is appropriate in the context, but you cannot say anything like I live in a sheep, unless you happen to live in a sheep, of course, in which case you could say ich wohne in einem Schaf. Have a go at that. Remember, Hans and Heidi's conversations are speaking activities, so you don't need to write any of this down. Okay, here is something you could have put. If you didn't get wohnst in Heidi's second line and Wiedersehen in her last line, correct them, as you don't get to choose those. However, if you didn't put München and you put another place that isn't somewhere that you don't live or isn't somewhere that one could live, so you're not saying that you live in a sheep, then you can have that. You don't have to live in Munich like Hans does in this case. However, you'll find later on that Hans does tend to like to change where he lives. Okay, most cities don't change name when they turn into German, with the exception on the slide I showed you of Brussels and Munich, which changed to Brüssel and München. Countries, however, quite often do. Here are some countries for you to practice. Ich wohne in England. Und du? Wo wohnst du? If you live in Australia, you could say, Ich wohne in Australien. For any Kiwis out there, you could say, Ich wohne in Neuseeland. Also, wo wohnst du? Ich wohne in England. Und du? Wo wohnst du? Okay, here we have the nationalities. The first one is for a man who comes from the country indicated. The second is a woman who comes from that country. So, Deutscher is a man that comes from Germany. Deutscherin is a woman that comes from Germany. Also, nochmal, again, wo wohnst du? But this time you'd say something like this. Ich wohne in England und ich bin Englische. You don't have to use the und, but if you want to, that does mean and. Also, ich wohne in England und ich bin Englische. By the way, you don't need to use an article. So you just would say, so if you live in India, you would say, ich wohne in Indien. Ich wohne in Indien und ich bin Inder or Inderin. Also, if you think you are ready to, please translate this story into English. The word sagt means says, by the way. So, for example, where it says, Hallo sagt Heidi, that would mean whatever Hallo is, which is pretty obvious, and then says Heidi. Just a quick hint, as we haven't actually done the verb sagen yet. So, here's what you should have got. Mark and correct your work if needed. Okay, our verb of the day, wohnen, to live. The infinitive, as I say, is wohnen. Then, as follows, and as is on the screen. Ich wohne, I live. Du wohnst, you live. Sie, es wohnt, he, she, it lives. Wir wohnen, we live. Ihr wohnt, you plural live. Remember, in English we don't change that, in German we do. Sie wohnen, they live. Also, we'll try that one more time and then you can revise it, and we will recap on it next lesson. The infinitive, wohnen, to live. Ich wohne, I live. Du wohnst, you live. Sie, es wohnt, he, she, it lives. Wir wohnen, we live. We live. Ihr wohnt, you plural live. Sie wohnen, they live. Also. Thank you for watching. That is all for today. Please feel free to revise what we have learnt today in deine Freizeit, in your free time. Deine Freizeit. Auf Wiedersehen.